Good afternoon, everyone. I'm joined by County Executive Adam Bello, Meaghan de Chateauvieux, President and CEO of Willow Domestic Violence Center, Alia Henton-Williams, Manager of City's Crisis Intervention Services, and Chief David Smith, and Dr. Shirley Green, the Commissioner of the Department of Recreation and Human Services. We're here today. First off, let me thank members of the media for being here to help us to get out this message related to domestic violence. And we're here today to help raise awareness about domestic violence and what can be done to safeguard our loved ones, friends, and neighbors against the harm and even death of so many people. Domestic violence affects so many individuals in our community and across the nation. I wanted to get this message out particularly because we had a very horrific incident that made the news about 3 weeks ago. But as you know, a lot of these incidences don't make the news. They don't make it out in the community. They don't make the front pages of the newspaper or the top stories of the news. So the most horrific ones do, but most of them do not. And as you know, domestic abuse is defined as violence done by someone in the victim's immediate family or household. This includes current and ex-partners, direct family members, extended relatives, family, friends. In Rochester, as I said, as in many other places, domestic violence remains a significant concern, impacting individuals and families regardless of age, gender, race, sexual orientation, or socioeconomic status. And I'm always reminded by the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, where nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. This amounts to more than 10 million men and women annually, 10 million. And nationally, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men have been victims of severe physical violence such as beating, burning, or strangling by an intimate partner in their lifetime. The presence of a gun, which we see a lot in Rochester, unfortunately, in a domestic violence situation increases homicides by 500%. Often there is a close relationship between the offender and the victim, making it seem impossible to get help without tearing their world apart. We are all here today to say we can help. There is a safe way out for you, and those closest to you also need protection. Willow will make you safe. They even take care of your pets. You have a place here, and you're going to hear from Meaghan in a second. Domestic violence is more than just physical abuse. It is a pattern by which an abuser seeks to gain power and control over their partner. And we know that this is done by isolating the victim from loved ones, cutting off financial resources, destroying property or pets, psychological and emotional abuse and/or threats or actual physical harm to the victim of their children. A red flag should be raised if you recognize any of these signs in your relationship or that of family member, coworker, or neighbor. Fortunately, there are resources available in Rochester and beyond for their victims and their families. The city and county, along with our partners across the region, meet regularly and created a network of professionals dedicated to ensuring that those who reach out for help are safeguarded before the ultimate price is paid. I want to turn it over to the county executive. The county executive in Willow, they've had a long-standing collaboration. In fact, he announced last year the county's effort around this topic. So I want to turn it over to my partner in government, the county executive, who's been working very hard on this issue as well. And then after that, Willow. Mr. County Executive.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I want to thank the Mayor, City of Rochester, for hosting us here today and bringing us all together, as well as the Chief of Police, Meaghan, you and the team at Willow Domestic Violence Center, for really raising awareness about this important issue that's affecting too many of our residents here in Monroe County. And it occurs to me, as I was thinking about how to start this today, is that we get together once a year during Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and the mayor and I do a proclamation, and the public officials come together, and we do that once a year to put out information to help survivors of domestic violence. But what we really need to do is to do this year-round, because it's not just once a year that people in our community are impacted by domestic violence. This happens every day in our community, and so I want to thank you, Mayor, for recognizing that and bringing us together so that we can continue to offer these support services to survivors of domestic violence in our community and let them know that they're not alone. Last year, the Monroe County Sheriff's Office reported over 1,100 incidents of domestic violence, and tragically 7 deaths were attributed to domestic violence by our sheriff deputies. So far in 2024, the Monroe County Sheriff's Office has reported 160 charges of domestic violence. Those are big numbers in and of themselves. These are troubling numbers, but what's more troubling is that those incidents don't reflect the entire county. That's just from the areas that are patrolled by the Monroe County Sheriff's Department. It does not include the city of Rochester or other towns and villages that have their own police departments. So just from the beginning of this year, that's 160 incidents alone. Every one of these incidents is reflective of real people, a disruption to families, and potential harm to individuals and children. One of the terrifying elements of domestic violence is when victims have no safe haven. They're unsafe even in their own homes. Everyone deserves to be safe in their own home. So I want to be clear. There is no tolerance for domestic violence in any form in Monroe County. So that's why it's important to have these powerful community partners here standing together to support and protect survivors of domestic violence. Monroe County is committed to helping domestic violence survivors feel safe and rebuild a healthy and happy life. We do this through collaboration with Willow, with law enforcement, and our government partners like the City of Rochester. We partner with Willow Domestic Violence Center on their court advocacy program to ensure that domestic violence survivors are fairly represented in court. And thanks to our federal partners, such as, including Congressman Joe Morelli, Senator Schumer, and Senator Gillibrand, last year we joined with Willow to announce $1.5 million of American Rescue Plan funding to support the Willow Domestic Violence Center and to launch Monroe County's first Family Justice Center. Because we know that survivors of domestic violence often need multiple support services and they need them quickly. So the Family Justice Center will do that. It's a one-stop shop. So individuals and families don't have to navigate a maze of agencies to get the help that they need. So whether it's housing, transportation, legal services, having everything available at one convenient location is not just efficient, but it will be transformative to families and their lives. And so we are lucky and proud to have this forward-thinking organization like Willow here and many boots-on-the-ground organizations that meet people where they are and help them in all the phases of their life. So again, I want to take a moment to recognize the difficult work of our first responders as well. Our sheriff's office, our deputies, the Rochester Police Department, the town and village police departments, EMS, and ambulance services. They're often first on the scene and faced with complicated, demanding, and sometimes dangerous situations. And I'm committed to continuing our partnership with the city, law enforcement, and Willow to ensure that we meet the needs of survivors of domestic violence and that we continue to find ways to work together to prevent deaths in our community. Everyone deserves to be safe, respected, and loved. And love should never inflict pain, and love should never inflict fear. I encourage anyone who feels unsafe to reach out. No one should have to face abuse alone. Help is available, you are not alone, and your voice matters, and a better, safe future is possible. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please call or text our 24-hour hotline. It's at 585-222-7233. Again, it's 585-222-7233. You can text or call that hotline. It's a 24-hour hotline that will help connect you with the support and the services that you need in your time of need, and to also make sure that you understand that this community cares for each other. We care for each other. We have a system of love and support in place to help those who are experiencing domestic violence and to help survivors of domestic violence. But we need you to reach out. And we need you, if you know someone who's being victimized right now and you want to help them, you can call or text this hotline as well. And we can find the resources and support that you need as well. So with that, I'll turn it back to our partner here, this Rochester Mayor, Malik Evans.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. County Executive. So please heed those numbers. We want to see, you can't talk about, for us, when we talk about violence, domestic violence is in there. We've had homicides this past year, and many of those homicides are domestic violence related homicides. I want to call up Meaghan with Willow Domestic Violence Center, who will talk about the impact of the incredible programs that she has, that they have in our region, and also to give you the menu of options that Willow has. We stand with Willow. We are very supportive of Willow. Whatever they need, the county and city will come to their aid, because they are doing such important work here in our community, led by Meaghan and her team. So Meaghan?
Thank you, Mayor Evans. Thank you, County Executive Bello, too, for being here and being true champions for survivors of domestic violence in our community, for recognizing, as you always do, that violence and all violence in our community is deeply connected to trauma, and that our community violence is almost always rooted in domestic violence. We read the news and we see the homicides and we see what's happening in our community, and we know that behind the scenes those stories are connected to violence in the home, to trauma and domestic violence relationships. Violence in the home spills out into our streets, and our community is hurting right now. Over the past decade, I've had the honor and privilege of working with so many partners here today in this movement to end domestic violence, to end all violence in our community. We know what is working, we know what works, and we know what we still need to do to truly support survivors. Together, we have made huge leaps, leap day, huge leaps toward ending abuse. We have walked hand in hand with survivors on their journey to safety and healing. We have restored hope for thousands of families, and we are literally saving lives. We have strong partnerships among and between us to meet the needs of survivors in our community. Survivors tell us what they need, and we respond. From housing to legal services to court support to trauma-informed mental health counseling to healthcare to child abuse intervention to offender accountability, we know that Rochester has a strong, coordinated response to domestic violence. And together we are breaking the silence, amplifying the voices of survivors themselves, and restoring resilience and hope for families every day. So we talked about the numbers a little bit. The mayor and the county executive shared some of their data that they have. We know that 911 calls exceed 40,000 a year that are connected to domestic violence. Willow receives over 12,000 calls to our 24/7 hotline every year. That's nearly 40 calls a day. That number has increased since the prior year and the year before that too. Domestic violence is increasing, the demand for services continues to grow, and we are here to meet that demand. We are here to help 24/7. During the height of the pandemic, we saw numbers rise like we had never seen before. Survivors who were forced to be home with their abusers during the lockdown escalated already dangerous situations. And I am often asked now that the pandemic is over, have the numbers returned to normal? So first and foremost, there's nothing normal about domestic violence. Everyone deserves to be safe in their relationship and in their homes, and yet here in Rochester and Monroe County, the number of survivors coming forward and asking for help continues to climb. We think in part because of the services that are available, because people who are suffering in silence in their homes know that we are here to help them. We have more numbers of people coming forward. That's my hope. We do know that it is underreported and that there are survivors out there who are not seeking help, who are still alone in their abusive relationships. Domestic violence does not know any barriers. It does not know boundaries. Domestic violence affects every demographic, every neighborhood, every zip code, every corner of our community, and families in crisis need our entire community to wrap around them with support and care. At Willow, all services are free and confidential. There's no judgment, there's no shoulds. We're not going to tell you what to do, because we know that every journey is unique, and every survivor, you are the expert in your own life, and you know what you need to be safe. At Willow, we often say to survivors that hope starts here. And hope is this belief that your life can be better, and you have the power to make that happen. Hope is a powerful testament to survivors seeking better and safer tomorrows, better outcomes for their children, and a brighter future for our entire community. From the research, we know that co-located and multidisciplinary models like the Family Justice Center that we've been able to launch as a pilot program with support from the county, this model works. After launching centers in San Diego, DV homicides dropped by 90%. In Alameda, 75%. And in Brooklyn, 51%. There might be other factors contributing to this, but we know that when we identify the highest risk cases and we look at those lethality indicators, like firearms in the home, strangulation, other indicators that tell us there's a danger level that's very high, when we work together in partnership to protect survivors and to hold offenders accountable, we are saving lives. So I am going to share a story with you all today, a story that inspires and gives hope, a story about a survivor who I will call M for the sake of confidentiality. So M and her partner started dating. When they were dating, he didn't want her to hang out with friends or visit her mom without him being there. He told her how she should dress. He introduced her to his friends and she lost all of hers. They got engaged. The abuse got worse. A twisted arm as he helped her exit a restaurant because he thought she was flirting with the server. He told her to stop smiling at people. No more smiling. The violence in their home spilled into the streets, and he was arrested twice for aggravated assault. He was sorry. He loved her so much. He couldn't help it. They got married. He managed their money, and he took her paycheck to help with budgeting. He sold her car to pay off his drug debt. But the debt never really ended as he continued using and selling. Dealers would regularly show up to their home looking for money. Others arrived looking for drugs. The violence continued both inside and outside, with gun violence happening regularly on their street. M got pregnant, and one night, she didn't have dinner ready when he got home. He broke her front tooth and he threw her down a flight of stairs. She miscarried. The URMC staff referred her to Willow's Family Justice Center to press charges and file an order of protection. This wasn't the first time that M had tried to leave him, but it was the last time. She found safety through Willow and our many partners in this work. And a friend of Willow, who's a dentist, pro bono, fixed her smile. And she has many reasons to smile now. Today, she's thriving in her new apartment that Willow's housing team helped her secure. She is safe. Her ex is awaiting a court date, and she's receiving help with both her civil and criminal cases through the Family Justice Center. I'm sure many people are wondering what they can do to help people like M or any of the 12,000 survivors who call our hotline each year. You can start by believing. Listen and believe. If you are able, donate to Willow. Even the smallest donation of goods, services, items ensures we can keep all of our services free for survivors who need them. And believe in the power of prevention. We have a team of folks that go into the schools, into places of worship, into workplaces, and more to provide education on how to recognize abuse, what those red flags are, how to support someone who's being abused, and how to foster a healthy relationship, how to be a good friend. Hands are not for hitting. We talk to young ones, we talk to high schoolers, we talk to college kids, we're in the workplaces, trying to help our community understand, how to prevent domestic violence in their lives. You can go to willowcenterny.org to learn more, or call or text our 24/7 hotline 222-7233. Together, we can end this violence and abuse in our community. I'm going to leave you with a quote, which is a personal favorite of mine, from the book Hope Rising: How the Science of Hope Can Change Your Life. Hope is the belief that your future can be brighter than your past and that you play a role in making it happen. And I want to thank everyone up here with me for helping to make that happen. And to all of the survivors out there, please know we are here for you. We are here to help. Help is available. We have a team of advocates and partners. This entire community stands with survivors, and we are ready and willing and able to help you on your journey to safety and healing. Thank you.
Thank you, Meaghan. I mean, such powerful words, and so blessed to have the work of an organization like Willow, who is really making a difference in our community, and so very important. I really want to, one day, I want to have a day where we don't have a stabbing in our community that's related to domestic violence, or a shooting or a menacing related to domestic violence. So if I'm standing up here with all of these folks, that it's a serious issue in our community. We just don't call press conferences like this just because. We really need to get the message out that we need a change in our community as it relates to the violence, all violence, but domestic violence in particular is what we're highlighting today. I want to bring up Alia Henton-Williams to talk about some of the services that we offer here. Alia is very much schooled in this topic as well, and she can talk about our homicide response team, our community support team, and also our person in crisis team, and also share her thoughts on this topic. Alia.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Thank you to Mayor Evans and my commissioner, Dr. Green, for supporting myself and our crisis services unit in the important work that we do. Crisis services is given the autonomy and empowerment to serve the community in many ways, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We are provided the opportunity to have amazing partnerships, including our collaborations with our partners here today, the county, the Rochester Police Department, Willow, and many other service providers that enable us to impact the community on a daily, sometime hourly basis. As many of you know, this work is extremely personal to me. My family and I live with the tragic losses of my oldest sister, Alia Henton-Williams, who lost her life to domestic violence in 2018, and the homicide of my 16-year-old brother, Ralik, who was killed in 1992. I am encouraged and pleased that Crisis Services is a unit of servanthood with 3 teams that intersect and provide services to our community members experiencing crisis and trauma, homicides, and victimization. From our homicide response team, which responds 24/7 to the homicide scenes, no matter the day, time, or weather that occur in the city of Rochester. Myself, our supervisor and social worker, Leslie Gordon-Ogden, and our partner, Wanda Ridgway from Rise Up Rochester, arrive at these scenes to work directly with our police department's major crimes unit to provide mental and emotional support to the family members whose lives have been tragically and forever changed. What makes this work so personal and effective is that each member of the homicide response team has unfortunately lost a loved one to homicide. However, our life's mission is to help the brokenhearted during their time of need. In 2021 and 2022, we saw over 150 homicides in this community, and the homicide response team responded to over 90% of those scenes. We press on even on the days when our own pain and memories seek to pull us under because we are servants. Our Person in Crisis PIC team is our team of trained emergency response social workers who provide much needed responses to our community members in crisis, including mental and behavioral health, domestic violence, homelessness, and substance use, among many other types of crises. The PIC team responds with training, compassion, and caring, providing support, safety plans, and resources. In January of this year, the PIC team responded to over 450 calls, including co-responses with the Rochester Police Department. The community support team is our team of counselors who provide outreach and support to the victims in our community. This includes our partnership with Willow's Family Justice Center, where Crisis Services has staff present and available to serve domestic violence victims. Additionally, we provide outreach to any domestic violence and other crime-related crime that the Rochester Police Department generates a report for. We also answer questions regarding resources and community services by phone and walk-in. Our counselors can provide or attempt to reach 500 victims monthly. It is our prayer that someday our work will not be necessary, but that is not our current reality. With that being said, we must recognize the need for prevention and intervention. As it is said, everyone deserves relationships free from domestic violence. We've heard the statistics, and the question should be, what can we do? Know the signs and do not ignore them. Be a resource and support the efforts of our partner Willow and others. Get involved with community efforts. The responsibility begins with each of us, and together we can be the difference that we all speak of. Crisis Services in the City of Rochester will continue to keep the faith, remain hopeful, and most importantly, serve. We are able to push forward, even with such heavy work, due to the homicide response team, the person in crisis team, and our community support team members who are doing the work our leadership and city council believing in us and providing the resources to support us. We also thank the community for embracing crisis services when we arrive at scenes to help, allowing us to be with you during your most vulnerable moments. We are here for you, and we will continue to serve based on the needs of the Rochester community. If you are in crisis, you can reach the PIC team by calling 988, and if you need the community support team, that number is 428-6630. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Alia. The work of these teams are absolutely critical. We know that they work 24/7. They do not close. As you know, I always tell people the city does not close. And as a result of that, we have people who are working overtime to make sure we help our community. I want to bring up, lastly, our police chief, David Smith, and he's last by design because we wanted to talk about prevention and intervention first. Because often, when the police arrive on the scene, it's too late, and often bad things have happened. I can tell you, and I'm only going into the 2 years and 2 months almost, as mayor, almost 3 months, and so many of the calls that I get from the chief are, it's a domestic. It's a domestic. It's a domestic. And usually when that happens, when he says that, it is not good. It is not good. The one a couple of weeks ago really bothered me because it was not only a child and it was a child and her mother, but we have had murders, many murders, too many. You heard the number in Monroe County that the county executive gave, and that was just Monroe County, not counting the city of Rochester, that have resulted in domestic violence. And so often it is the police department that arrives at these scenes, and we almost say, what happened? What went wrong? What if we could have done one thing differently? So we don't want the police to have to arrive on a scene, and unfortunately, it's a scene in which a violent incident led to a homicide. But we've seen so many of them, and I want that to stop. Chief.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to all of our partners for being here today. You know, we've come to realize over the years that like many of our community's problems, domestic violence is not something that the police department is going to arrest its way out of the problem. Because as the mayor said, often by the time we're involved, it's far too late. As we all know, domestic violence affects all segments of our community, regardless of income or any socioeconomic factors. Here in the city of Rochester, the Rochester Police Department responded to over 26,000 calls for family troubles in 2023 alone. There's 365 days in the year. Well, this year there's 366. But I'll leave you to do the math, how many calls a day that is out of 26,000. Every single one of these incidents is high stress, emotional event for everyone involved. This high level of emotion brings an increase in danger not only for the victims of domestic violence, but also for our officers. Far too often, the victims in these cases are either unable or too scared to speak with responding officers. As many of you know, I spent most of my career in patrol. The lion's share of our work, especially in the 90s when I was an officer, is responding to these domestic violence calls. Oftentimes they don't come in as a domestic, they may come in as a hang-up call, what we call a cause unknown. And the officers get there and the victim is too afraid to speak and the children are too afraid to speak. And the officers know what happened, but they don't have the evidence or the cooperation to do anything at that time. For years, the Willow Center has been an ally and partner of the Rochester Police Department, not only in reducing domestic violence, but in helping those in need escape from their abusers. This partnership over the years has saved countless lives. And now, with the beginning of the Willow Family Justice Center, the entire community can grow that partnership to not only save more lives and more families, but to help protect those in need that need us the most, to give them a place to go, besides calling 911. I'd like to thank Meaghan from the Willow Center, Alia from the City of Rochester's Crisis Intervention Service, the mayor and the county executive, and the leaders of all the organizations that helped to bring or helping to bring this change to our community. Because as I said, this is certainly not something the Rochester Police Department is going to be able to solve on its own. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. And that concludes our speakers. But again, I just want to reiterate some phone numbers that were given earlier today. If you are in need of immediate assistance or experiencing a crisis, you can call the city's Person in Crisis team. All you have to do is pick up the phone and dial 988. You can also text Willow's 24-hour hotline, 585-222-SAFE, 585-7233, 585-7233. But if you remember 222-SAFE, their services are free and confidential. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe by working together as a community, we can support survivors, hold abusers accountable, and ultimately work towards a future free from domestic violence. I want to thank all of these partners up here for being here today, and I'll open it up to any questions that you may have, and I'll let our experts field any of the questions that you may have related to our ongoing work to combat domestic violence. Any questions? That's Eric Cutter.
Sir, you mentioned news stories. Is there any particular story that maybe sparked this conference? There's a few people that come to mind. I just wanted to open that up.
Well, I think one of the ones that really come to mind was, and Chief, I think this was 3 weeks ago, where you had a mother who was stabbed by her partner. The daughter went and intervened, and she also was stabbed. Thankfully, they survived. It didn't look like that at the beginning when the chief called me. And when he called me, I said, Chief, I said, this is crazy. I said, we gotta keep getting the message out about that. And then just the number of menacings that we have seen. There has also been other stabbings. Obviously, we don't give all the details when you reported on the news that there's a stabbing. But a lot of those stabbings, I would say probably 90% of them are domestic violence related. We don't say that in the news because it's under investigation and all those things that are happening. And a lot of those have been since the beginning of this year. And it's been very, very concerning for me. And then just the stories I've been hearing. I mean, for me, it's always always kind of surprising for me because you think that this would dissipate. But for Willow and for Alia, this is what they live every day. But we wanted to give voice to this because I know the work that these people are doing. And I thought it was important as we're only going into the third month of the year to kind of put out to the challenge of the community to say, can we improve the numbers from last year? Can we get the numbers better from where they were last year to this year to be better? And being that we're going into March, maybe this will be a challenge to the community to try to improve those numbers and utilize Willow, utilize the counseling that we offer through our Person in Crisis team. Utilize this great center that the county executive invested $1.5 million in as a place to kind of deal with that. I don't know if anybody else wanted to add anything else. Yes, go ahead.
I also wanted to add too, the mayor spoke about the particular stories that we see that are domestic violence incidents specifically. When we read the news, oftentimes the people who are causing harm or perpetrating violence in our community, even if it's not in the moment connected to domestic violence, chances are their history has a lot of trauma and DV. So maybe they grew up in a home with domestic violence. Maybe they have had experiences perpetrating violence against a partner in the past, and this is just a continuation of that behavior. And so when we think about prevention being so critically important to get to our young people and talk to them about healthy relationships and help provide those tools and supports so they can grow up to have healthy relationships and not perpetrate the kind of violence we see, whether it's in a relationship or just in general in our community, we're seeing far too much trauma. And so thinking about the particular incidents is important, but it's also the bigger picture of just the violence in our community and what we can do to help support people who are experiencing abuse and people who have experienced trauma and show them there are other ways to find help for what they need to, not turning to violence.
Meaghan, while you're up there, there may be somebody out there that they suspect something's going on, whether it be a friend or a family, and they feel like, I don't want to get in the way, or, is there something you could say to them that possibly what they can do?
Yeah, we actually get a lot of calls to our hotline from people who are worried about a friend or a family member. You know, they'll call and say, my sister is going through this. I don't know what to do. She's not listening to me. And we often hear people that need support for their loved ones. And so our hotline advocates will talk with you about what you can do to help a friend or a family member or a coworker. You know, people in your life that you see the signs that you're thinking something's not quite right here, but I don't know what to do about it. You can call our hotline and we'll help you walk through that too.
Thank you. Any others? Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for getting the information out. And again, person in crisis team, 988, Willow's number, 222-SAFE, 222-SAFE, 222-7233. Thank you for all my partners for being here, and thank you all for covering this important topic. Thank you. Thanks, guys.